The moment the front door slammed and those venom-laced words rang through the marble halls, "You have 1 hour to take what fits in 2 suitcases and get your crying brats out." That was the fracture line of my life. Each dawn, as golden sunlight breaks over my penthouse windows, that memory slices through the morning peace. The woman who spat that sentence now fills my inbox with desperate pleas, regrets, apologies, offers, all marinated in the bitter sauce of her own downfall. But let me warn you, revenge doesn't glitter the way storytellers promise. When everything you clung to, home, love, belonging, gets carved away by the people you were supposed to trust most, even your wildest victory feels hollow. No vindication can patch the hole they left. But the iron you find in your soul, forged in the flames of their betrayal, that is pure treasure. If you're watching this, whether you're weathering a storm or breathing easy for just a moment, know this: my story might echo dangerously close to your own. Maybe you've learned that the people who should shield your heart can wield the sharpest knives. My name is Amara, and this isn't just a comeback story. It's a confession about love, power, cruelty, and the secret strength inside us all. Once, I was a new widow, clutching 2 shivering infants in the stinging rain outside a mansion, my tears lost in the downpour, as the people who promised me family hurled our lives into garbage bags. Today, my name is on the deeds of that house and 20 others. This journey started with the night I learned what shared blood really means, and which loyalties are just illusions. Rewind to the beginning, before triumph, before the reckoning. I was only 24 when I met David Whitmore. Not the expected age or background for a woman marrying into one of the city's oldest fortunes. Back then, I was a pediatric nurse on the night shift, bone-weary, renting a studio that swallowed every cent of my salary. I believed in kindness, hard work, and in love. A love that would surely, naively, outlast any hardship. I thought marriage was about partnership. I saw family as loyal, warm, and unbreakable. When tragedy came, I expected kin would band together, not shatter apart. I look back and wonder at my own innocence. David, though, he was a different breed of rich. David Whitmore's wealth showed in his actions, not in parades. He ran the Whitmore Charitable Foundation, spending his days in hospital wards and schools, investing in the overlooked and the voiceless. When he walked onto my pediatric floor that rainy Tuesday in his understated Navy suit, asking about funding our new children's library, I assumed he was just another figurehead. But he didn't just shake hands and pose for photos. He stayed, reading to children, listening to overworked nurses like me, hauling boxes, asking what we actually needed. After 3 hours, he finally introduced himself. David Whitmore. I know the name means something, but I hope you'll let me be just David first. Subscribe to the Untold channel and like it. Our vibrant stories will add years to your life. Join our storytelling club and tell us in the comments, Where do you listen to them from? Everyone in our city knew the Whitmore name, with buildings, hospitals, galleries, even parks branded in their honor. It was old, heavy money, the kind people bowed to, the kind that dictated reputations. If I'd paid closer attention to the subtle daggers behind his family's polite smiles, the conversations that stopped when I entered a room, maybe I would have braced myself. Instead, I believe their awkwardness would thaw with time, with love. His mother, Patricia, was the sculptor of icy welcomes. Regal, statuesque, always in glimmering diamonds, she spoke with clipped graciousness that let you know exactly how far beneath her you stood. "Amara, darling," she would purr, the endowment freezing. You do appreciate the obligations that come with this family's name. Caroline, David's sister, took it further, her words sugar-coated, her eyes sharp. She'd joke at my expense, my clothes, my upbringing, my lack of connections. "Amara, you're so authentic," she'd laugh, after I wore the wrong thing, to yet another ghastly charity gala. "It's like you don't even try to blend in. How brave." Maybe it should have hurt me more. But love, true blinding love, cast a shield. David never let me feel small. He celebrated my career, swept away every trace of insecurity. The day we married, 500 guests in the Whitmore family chapel, chandeliers sparkling, laughter in the air. I thought I'd found my fairy tale. Those months were golden. David made our new life shimmer with unself-conscious joy. When I discovered I was pregnant with twins, he wept in gratitude. Every hurdle, a difficult pregnancy, my early leave from work, my fears of being too much or not enough, he met with steadfast love. He hired world-class doctors. He spent midnight hours whispering dreams over my swelling belly. Our children, Marcus and Maya, came 6 weeks early, but perfect. David rushed to every feeding, sang lullabies in a comically off-key baritone, built castles of blocks around their cribs. We thrived for 6 precious months, a family discovering joy in small things. Then a single phone call at 2:17 a.m. shattered that fragile world. "Black ice," the officer said. David's car, a tree. No chance to say goodbye. I was just 26, alone, mother to tiny twins. The real nightmare, though, had only begun. I clung to my babies, surrounded by a family performing grief for the cameras, but already plotting my removal. In my own house, where I dared to belong, the ground started slipping from under me. In the endless, hollow days that followed, the Whitmores were suddenly everywhere. Each movement choreographed, each word measured, each embrace cold as stone. Patricia materialized often, always in black, her every sigh a performance for the mourning elite. "We must think of the children," she'd intone, but her eyes, which never lingered long on mine or my infants, seemed to count down the days until she could reclaim her domain. I was an awkward ornament, a living reminder of what she'd lost, but never loved. It started small, the slippage. A chair removed from the kitchen, photos of David and me replaced by stiff portraits of his ancestors. The first time I found my wedding china boxed up and stacked by the service entrance. I convinced myself it was a mistake. But the household staff, those who'd once offered shy smiles, had gone silent, wary, slipping through rooms like ghosts. The sense of exile pressed in. Every day, I retreated deeper into the nursery, cradling Maya and Marcus, whispering promises I couldn't guarantee I could keep. Still, hope flickered, stubborn as a candle in the wind. I believed, somehow, my love for David would tether me to the family, that our children would be the bridge they could never destroy. But bridges burn fastest in unseen fires. The legal battles ignited before the flowers on David's grave had wilted. Patricia, her lawyer, and the family's stoic accountant appeared in my living room one brittle morning. Statements in crisp folders, their voices honey-slick but deadly sharp. They asked that I consider the family's reputation and return to a respectable life, suggesting a penthouse that bore no mark of David, no memories. In exchange, they'd oversee the children's well-being, educate them in the Whitmore tradition, shield them from the world's cruelties. Each word struck like a slap. I was the outsider, the inconvenient detour in their planned legacy. But when I refused, heart pounding, voice quivering, not from fear, but from the unbearable weight of protecting my children, Patricia's mask slipped. She became ice incarnate, her lips forming that now immortal command. I had 60 minutes to pack 2 suitcases and never return. Nannies appeared, instructed to shepherd me away. My shaking hands packed only necessities: medical records, baby clothes, David's watch, photos I could slip from the frames. The rest, all David's letters, our wedding album, our home, became property of a family that insisted I'd never been a real Whitmore at all. I found myself on a cold sidewalk, rain matting my hair, my tears dissolving into the storm. 2 black-suited guards watched dispassionately as I struggled with my twins in their stroller, my city reduced to 4 bags and the weight of my grief. The cab ride to my friend Nina's apartment was a blur. Each bump and turn seemed to remind me of my abrupt fall from grace, from certainty, and from hope. Nina was warmth incarnate. She received us, me shattered and trembling, the babies bewildered and wailing. Without hesitation, her embrace simultaneously fierce and gentle. We squeezed into her spare bedroom, lining up the cribs beside her antique bookshelf, making a life out of what little remained. But when the silence settled each night and the city's neon lights blinked through the curtains, I wept anew for everything stolen from us. And still, in those darkest hours, I felt something strange and unfamiliar flickering within, a quiet fury, a stubborn ember of self. If the world was so willing to erase me, why not write a new page, a new history, one that belonged only to us? The first days in Nina's apartment blurred into each other, a symphony of exhaustion and desperate agency. At sunrise, I'd rise to tend the twins, my mind spinning with anxiety. But necessity is a relentless teacher. I scrolled through childcare forums and job listings by moonlight, determined to build a new foundation for my family. I called former colleagues, humbling myself to ask if there were nursing shifts to be had. Bills loomed, and each diaper became an exercise in resourcefulness. And then came the legal letters, blunt, curt, threatening. The Whitmore family wanted guardianship of Marcus and Maya. Patricia had hired top family law attorneys. Allegations flew that I was unfit, that the twins deserved stability and legacy. I realized with white-hot clarity this was a campaign not just to expel me, but to erase me. I could have surrendered. Many would have. Each day was a hurricane of grief, responsibility, and legal terror. But I remembered David's assurances, the love he planted in me, which had not died with him. My children deserved a mother who fought for them, not a ghost who faded away for another woman's comfort. That realization was the match that set my resistance ablaze. The custody fight was brutal, a chess game of betrayals and revelations. Courtrooms became my new battleground, my nerves steadied by a resolve I didn't recognize in myself. I wore my best suit, spoke with measured dignity, presented every medical record and photograph documenting my unwavering care. Nina became my second, a guardian angel guiding me through the maze, while friends pooled donations for legal fees. And kind strangers slipped gift cards into our mailbox. I was not alone, after all. The Whitmores wielded their money like a sledgehammer. Their witnesses, ex-nannies, distant relatives, even former friends, whispered doubts about me. But my love for Marcus and Maya was unassailable. I spoke, not with bitterness or blame, but with the pure, burning truth of a mother wronged. With every proceeding, with every name whispered from the stand, I felt the old shell of myself shatter, revealing someone new, someone strong and unsparingly honest. Months passed. The city's seasons changed. Leaves tumbled over courthouse steps. Snow blanketed Nina's window ledge. At last, after a winter's worth of battles, a weary judge rendered his verdict. The children would remain with their mother. The applause that broke out among my friends felt like salvation, but the true victory was the quiet relief on my twins' faces. The day we finally, truly came home. Victory brought its own set of challenges. Winning custody was not a guarantee of peace, but merely the end of one battle and the beginning of another. Money, which had always been David's shield and my comfort, was now a memory. My bank account was lighter than ever. My options painfully few. The Whitmores retreated, licking their wounds, but remained a haunting presence, a shadow trailing our every step. Still, I found new power in autonomy. I was free for the first time to carve out a life not defined by obligation or borrowed luxury. I returned to nursing, taking on every shift I could, sometimes double, sometimes triple. The work was physically grueling, but within its rhythm, I reclaimed my sense of purpose. The hospital, bustling with life and urgency, was where I rediscovered resilience. The camaraderie of my colleagues, the gratitude of frightened parents, and the quiet mercy of the night shifts wrapped me in a fragile but real sense of belonging. In those small victories, soothing a feverish child, saving a life, earning a smile, I built something indestructible. Each evening when I trudged back to Nina's apartment, my arms full of groceries and my mind foggy with fatigue, I found the twins waiting, eyes bright with anticipation. The pure joy in their voices, "Mama," stripped away every hardship I had endured that day. We learned to cherish the splendor of simple things. Breakfast picnics on the living room floor, pirate adventures on the fire escape, bedtime stories interrupted by giggles. Love, in its rawest form, became our luxury. As time unfurled, I began to believe in the possibility of a future again. 6 months melted into a year. Nina, steadfast as the North Star, became more than a friend. She was family. Together, we celebrated birthdays with homemade cakes, conjured laughter from chaos, turned adversity into stories worthy of retelling. Marcus and Maya grew, their world expanding beyond their earliest pain. For them, struggle was the backdrop to their childhood, but never its center. There were moments, of course, when the past pried its way back in. Court summonses still arrived, sometimes just to harass, sometimes bearing real threats. The Whitmores stalked us in the margins, attempting to undermine my new professional reputation, twisting rumors, weaning on acquaintances to ostracize me. But an unexpected army emerged. My fellow nurses, patients' families, mothers from the park. With every lie the Whitmores spun, someone else stepped forward to tell the truth. Each instance made me bolder. I started to speak up, not merely for myself, but for every overlooked woman, every single parent outmaneuvered by the powerful. I began volunteering at legal clinics, sharing my story to embolden others. My voice, once quiet and tremulous, sharpened. I discovered not only my capacity to survive, but to inspire. There was one evening that marked a turning point, a spring night, fresh with rain, golden with city lights. Nina had taken the kids to a nearby festival, urging me to take a rare night for myself. Alone in the hush of her living room, I sat at the kitchen table, surrounded by the artifacts of 2 years' struggle, court transcripts, employment applications, photo strips from the twins' birthdays. A strange calm settled over me. For the first time since David's death, I allowed myself to remember him, not as tragedy, but as the bright laughter that had once filled my life. I smiled at his favorite watch, traced the faded ink of his last birthday card, whispered a promise to the darkness. I would make our children's lives worthy of the love that once built this family. And then, as if called by courage, I sent out applications beyond the hospital, roles in advocacy, leadership, Anything that reached further mattered more. That night, I wrote the opening lines of an essay called What Remains When They Take Everything. By dawn, it was already going viral on social media. I hadn't expected that anyone would care for the story of a ghost wife, but the world proved me wrong. In less than 2 weeks, invitations flooded my inbox. Organizations for women's rights and family law wanted to hear more. Journalists requested interviews. My inbox was awash with stories from strangers. Women abandoned after loss, mothers ousted by cold families, sons and daughters who'd watched their mothers fight impossible wars. I realized my pain, once so isolating, was a bridge to countless others. Soon, opportunities shifted from modest speaking panels to national conferences. Each time I stepped behind a microphone, nerves trembling, I drew breath and remembered that sodden night on the doorstep. Exiled, afraid, but unbroken. I spoke for myself, for the twins, and for the network of the unseen and unheard. Every audience, every standing ovation, patched the holes in my soul left by Patricia's ruthlessness. Even Patricia, through mutual acquaintances, eventually heard of my success. Her silence grew, then broke. A single email, written in brittle prose, trying to recast the past, to offer reconciliation. But I no longer hungered for her approval. I had made a family out of devotion, healed from the inside out, not with society's blessing, but against it. With each milestone, Marcus and Maya's first bike rides without training wheels, our first family vacation funded by the honorarium from my advocacy work, I grew less afraid. Anxiety gave way to anticipation. Each tomorrow became not a threat, but a promise. Nina and I scrimped and saved, eventually finding a small, sunlit apartment for just the 3 of us. No gilded banisters or servants. Instead, laughter at breakfast, mismatched plates that told stories of resilience. Work, once merely survival, transformed into a mission. I took my candidateship for a managerial role at the hospital, and my colleagues, many of whom had quietly supported me, cheered as I earned it. The work was challenging, sometimes relentless. That each late-night walk through the corridors, checking charts and comforting families, recalled the version of myself I had lost in grief and found in struggle. I made peace with the city. Rather than avoid landmarks of my old life, I reclaimed them. The park where David once proposed, the museum where Marcus learned to toddle through the ancient halls, the hospital atrium where my story had begun. These places no longer belong to the Whitmores, but to my children and to the new chapters we'd inscribed across the city's heart. The years stretched onward, and with them, the wounds began to transform. What once had been raw became strong and supple, like skin after healing. Though the Whitmores remained a distant funder in our lives, a news article here, a chance encounter in a restaurant there, their power to intimidate faded. Occasionally I'd spot Patricia at charity events, her posture rigid, her eyes scanning me as if searching for cracks. Instead, she found poise, confidence, and a woman rebuilt by struggle. We were not friends, nor would we ever be, but she no longer wielded the power to erase my history. Marcus and Maya grew steadily. Their laughter became the anchor for each day, steadying me through occasional storms. They saw me not as the woman the Whitmores tried to define, but as the person who patched every scrape, celebrated every success, and taught them that courage often whispers, not roars. We celebrated their achievements voraciously. Spelling bees, soccer goals, art projects, and each time I remembered the cold stares from the mansion's hallways and felt pride surge through me. Their victories were my own, written into the marrow of our family. Sometimes, on quiet evenings, I'd reread the messages from women across the country, those who saw hope in my journey. I replied to as many as I could, offering encouragement and tangible advice, sharing resources, listening. This growing sisterhood was invisible, but indestructible. Through our intertwined stories, healing became communal, a promise passed from heart to heart. Success is never without complexity. The advocacy work grew, and with it, the invitations to policy roundtables, television interviews, foundation boardrooms. I had to learn the language of influence and power, negotiating opportunities and potential allies. There were setbacks, moments when critics tried to diminish me. The Whitmores, in a final effort, attempted to paint me as an opportunist leveraging my loss for profit. But I met these accusations head-on, never flinching, always returning to the core truth. My story was never about bitterness, but about resilience. The city's energy became a comforting rhythm to me, a tide I could navigate with increasing grace. Nina thrived as well, her own ambitions growing alongside mine. She launched a charity focused on supporting women who, like us, had found themselves adrift in the wake of family betrayals. Together, we watched our children flourish, their laughter carrying into the warm evenings that marked our new era. Love found new shapes in my life. I took joy in the warmth of friendships, the drone of children's laughter, the relief of solitude. Sometimes men I met through advocacy showed interest, their gentle overtures marked by respect. Still, my heart was careful. I understood that true belonging was not forged quickly, but in the patient unfolding of trust. The day I was offered the opportunity to speak at a national conference remains vivid in my memory. It was spring again, the city eager with renewal, and I found myself standing before an audience of hundreds. Lawyers, social workers, parents, students. As I looked out over the rows of expectant faces, the gravity of my journey pressed in, but so did the certainty. My speech began with the memory of standing in the rain, abandoned, but it finished with a call for compassion and reconstruction. That speech sparked a wave of change, not just for policy or programs, but in the hearts of those in the room. Afterward, a line of attendees assembled to thank me. Some shook with tears. Others pressed notes into my hand, sharing fragments of their own stories. I realized then that my pain had become more than a personal crucible. It was a lamp for others, illuminating paths through heartbreak and injustice. Professional recognition followed. The hospital honored me for my contributions, and the foundation offered to support my outreach efforts. I accepted, but only on my own terms. Every action would reflect the same values that saved me, never the empty gestures of social standing. My influence grew, not by force, but by patience and truth. Marcus and Maya blossomed into adolescence, each carving their own quirks, victories, and stubbornness. We had difficult conversations about loss, about family, about the Whitmores. I told them the whole truth, careful never to poison their hearts with hatred. They understood the importance of grace and power, of fighting for yourself without surrendering kindness. Our home, filled with art, books, the scent of cinnamon on lazy Sunday mornings, became a sanctuary. The city outside was vibrant, unpredictable, but inside our little apartment, we fostered safety and tradition. Friends gathered for holidays, Nina always at the center, stories and laughter echoing in the walls. From the ashes of exile, we nurtured a tapestry of support and joy. There were setbacks, of course, health scares, job changes, moments of crushing disappointment. But we faced each together. Each challenge reminded me of the night I lost everything, and how far we'd come. My children learned to be resourceful, to stand up for themselves, to become a force, not simply a presence. Lessons bloom. I saw in them a blend of David's gentleness and my resilience, a testament that love, even when battered, survives. Now, as I walk through the city with Marcus and Maya, towering, thoughtful adolescents, I reflect on the extraordinary arc of our lives. The pain at our beginning was not wasted. It carved new channels for compassion, purpose, and ferocity. Our story, once marred by betrayal and loss, became one of rebirth, echoing in text, in advocacy, and in the gentle bonds we built with others who needed hope most. The Whitmore family faded into the periphery. Patricia's name sometimes surfaced in articles, but her influence waned. We never fully reconciled, nor did I seek it. I found forgiveness, not for her sake, but for mine, an act of release, freeing me to build instead of looking backward. If you are reading or listening, you may know the pain of exile, the ache of injustice. You might wonder if it is possible to rebuild on the sand that remains. My answer is simple: yes. You will find strength in unexpected places, and you will forge new bonds where old ones have burned. Our family, built from the rubble, stands as proof. When life breaks you, it also makes you stronger, wiser, and ready to write the ending you deserve.